You ever had one of those crushes that just takes over everything? The kind that feels a little out of your control, like a song you just can't get out of your head, playing on a loop 24/7. Well, let's get into it, because that intense, all-consuming feeling actually has a name, and there's some really fascinating science behind why it happens.
I mean, that's the real question, isn't it? Why does this one person get to take up so much prime real estate in your head? It can feel like your own thoughts aren't even yours anymore. It's more than just being smitten. There's something much, much deeper going on here.
So there's actually a word for this. It's called limerence. And it's not just a cute crush. It's a full-on mental state of obsessive infatuation. The key difference here is those words involuntary and intrusive. This is when daydreams stop being fun and start feeling, well, a little relentless.
So what's happening? Why does this happen? Put simply, your brain has kind of tricked itself. Your motivation system, the part of you that goes after things you want, becomes hypersensitive. It accidentally trains you, almost like a pet, to see your crush as a reward. And it will not let that idea go.
Okay, so to really get a handle on this, we need to pop the hood and look at what's happening inside the brain. Let's see what's going on when simple attraction morphs into something this intense.
First, let's just look at the brain's addiction pathway. There are three main players here. You've got the basal ganglia, which is kind of like the reward and habit center. Then there's the extended amygdala, which handles all the stress and negative feelings when you don't get the reward. And finally, the prefrontal cortex, the CEO of the brain, that's supposed to make rational decisions. This is the exact circuit that lights up with substance addiction.
Now check this out. This is where it gets absolutely wild. On this slide, you can see the brain regions activated by addiction in green and the ones activated by romantic love in red. But the really telling part? That's the blue, where they overlap. It's kind of stunning, right? Your brain, when it's deep in a romantic attraction, looks shockingly similar to a brain on drugs.
And you can see how that brain activity plays out in our actual behavior. I mean, look at the parallels. Intense craving? Check. Obsessive thoughts or preoccupation? Absolutely. Emotional dependency? Yup. Impulsivity? You bet. A powerful, overwhelming motivation to pursue that person or thing? For sure. The line between intense love and addiction starts to get really, really blurry.
But it's not just about brain chemistry, you know? Our own personal psychology, especially the patterns we learn way back in childhood, can actually make us more likely to fall into these obsessive states. And that's where this idea of a fantasy bond comes in.
So what in the world is a fantasy bond? It's a psychological concept. Think of it as a defense mechanism we develop as kids. When we feel distressed or lonely, we create this illusion that we've merged with our parent or caretaker. It gives us a feeling of safety and connection, even if it's not actually real.
And it's a pretty straightforward process. Step 1, a child feels some kind of distress. They're hurt, they're scared, whatever it is. Step 2, as a defense, their mind creates this imaginary fusion with their parent to feel safe. And step 3, the result is this powerful but totally imaginary sense of security.
So, how does that childhood coping skill mess with us as adults? Well, we subconsciously try to recreate that same feeling of fused security in our romantic relationships. And the real danger here is that we end up replacing genuine, messy, real love with just the idea of a relationship. We might even end up provoking our partners into acting out the same negative family dynamics we grew up with just because it feels familiar.
And all of this brings us right back to the main symptom of limerence and these fantasy bonds. Those obsessive, intrusive thoughts. The ones that just get stuck on a loop.
Okay, first and foremost, and this is so important to hear, having weird, unwanted, intrusive thoughts is completely normal. As this quote says, it's a universal human thing. Everybody has them. You're not broken, and you're definitely not alone in this.
So here's the real secret. The thought itself isn't the problem. The problem is the importance we give it. When we freak out about it, or try to shove it away, or feel guilty about it, we're basically shining a giant spotlight on it. And that just gives it more power, making it show up more often and feel way more upsetting.
And listen, these thoughts can be about anything and everything our culture considers taboo. They might be aggressive, sexual, or religious. Often, they're the most inappropriate thing our brain can come up with. But again, the content doesn't mean anything about who you are as a person. It's just your brain producing mental static.
All right, we've dug into the brain science, we've looked at the psychology, so now for the most important part, right? What do we actually do about it? How do you break the cycle and get your head back?
Breaking these old patterns takes real conscious effort. It all starts with just acknowledging the truth, that this fantasy isn't real love. Then you have to start noticing those self-critical patterns and actually let yourself feel the pain you've been avoiding. A huge part of it is learning to individuate,
which is really just about getting comfortable being your own separate person. And from there, it's all about practicing open communication and building a bigger support system.
When you really boil it all down, all of these steps are about one thing: breaking the mental habit of just spinning your wheels and ruminating. It's about retraining your brain, a little bit at a time, to turn down the volume on those intrusive thoughts and find some peace and quiet again.
So, we're left with this really powerful question to think about. Knowing that the brain wiring for this intense, obsessive love looks so much like addiction, that doesn't have to be a bad thing. It doesn't mean you're doomed. Instead, how can knowing that actually empower you? What does it make possible for you to change about how you go out and build real, healthy connections? That's something worth considering.